Shopify Masters is powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, and anywhere in between. To get an extended 30-day trial, visit shopify.com/masters.
And you can really represent your brand across all facets, from typography to all the imagery. And so I think always do a Shopify store in tandem with an Etsy store.
Hey, my name is Felix, and I'm the host of Shopify Masters. Each week, we learn the keys to success from e-commerce experts and entrepreneurs like you. In this episode, you'll learn how you can attract wholesale clients through Etsy, how to make sure your differentiators are clear to first-time visitors, and how to hire and ramp up temporary workers. Today, I'm joined by Tamara Main from Brooklyn Candle Studio. Brooklyn Candle Studio sells deliciously scented, eco-friendly soy candles and was started in 2013 and based out of Brooklyn, New York. Welcome.
Thank you.
So tell us a bit more about the business and what is the most popular product that you sell in your store currently?
So the business, we make, as you just said, handmade soy candles. They're very, we use natural ingredients, phthalate-free fragrances, really domestically grown soy. And our most popular product is our Fern and Moss candle, our mason jar candle. It's kind of a very wonderful unisex scent, notes of oak moss and spruce, and it's a very naturey scent. It was inspired by a hike in Fern Valley, California. So, that's our most beloved item.
Mm-hmm. Now, were you selling these products offline to start? Like, how did you get your start with the business?
I started on Etsy, actually. I started making candles for fun, and it was really kind of a hobby at first, something I started making them as gifts for Christmas the year before. And I got very kind of obsessed with learning how to make scents and, learning about the different ingredients and creating these candles that were eco-friendly, that used cotton braided wicks, soy wax, because a lot of the stuff you find in the stores don't really use the best ingredients. So I started making these candles, and I had a whole bunch. And I was a designer before, so I designed some packaging. And I decided to kind of throw up an Etsy shop just for fun. It was kind of almost a joke. I was like, oh, I wonder if I can sell these candles on the internet where no one can smell them. They actually kind of took off. Etsy featured us in a couple of emails, and, I ended up getting a lot of requests from buyers of retail stores. And it got to the point where I had to quit my job. Once sales were getting crazy, and I wanted to kind of parlay things into my own e-commerce shop, and that's kind of where Shopify came in.
Yeah, I've heard of retailers that shopping on Etsy look for producers, for people like you to carry. I didn't realize that existed until I heard it a few times from other successful Etsy sellers. What was that experience like? What do you think made them attracted to working with you specifically?
I think that they were attracted to kind of multiple aspects of my business. One, I think beautifully designed products. I paid really close attention to the typography and the kind of the balance and the aesthetics of my products. So that's number one. Number two are the scents. There's a lot of stuff out there in the home fragrance market that's kind of very cloying, very unnatural, cake smelling stuff. And I kind of wanted to go, on a more botanical angle. So a lot of our stuff are made with essential oil infused fragrances. And then also, the eco-friendly aspect. Our candles are made with domestically grown soy, which is a sustainable ingredient. And it's kind of, when you burn the candle, it burns a lot cleaner. It doesn't emit carcinogens into the air as paraffin wax does. We also use cotton braided wicks, which is which are made in the US. They don't release lead as other candles do. So there's multiple aspects, I think, that people are looking for.
Now, all these differentiators that you listed, did you know that your customers, before you, of course, you open and before the success, did you know that the customers cared about these differentiators that you listed?
I did. I think it kind of shows with, markets like Whole Foods that focus on organic ingredients or all natural products. And I'm kind of part of that target audience as well. I'm very conscious about what I purchase, and I know a lot of people that are, especially living in Brooklyn and New York City. It's something that people are very concerned about. Mm-hmm. So, I wanted to make a product that I would use. And I researched the ingredients, I researched fragrances, I researched, all the different materials you can use, and wanted to make them as safe and eco-friendly as possible.
Now that you knew that there was a need for this kind of differentiator because you did the research, and of course you are also your target customer, which I think is definitely the best place to start from. How did you make sure that these differentiators were clear to the people, especially early on, especially before people knew who you were? How did you make those differentiators clear to people that were visiting, let's say, your Etsy store for the first time?
I think that, you have your mission statement, you kind of put that in all your Google or your metadata descriptions and stuff like that. But, I always made that clear on my about page and all the product descriptions. I make it known if you're reading about the product, you read the scent and then you read about the different ingredients and materials. And so I think that's a very important aspect of the candles. It's not just the design, it's not just the scent, but it's also the fact that, these burn for a long time and these ingredients are sustainable, and you're not really, wasting the Earth's resources. They regrow. And I think that's important.
Mm-hmm. Now, were there any differentiators that you, as a consumer of these kind of products, that you really wanted to exist, you really cared about, but found out that your audience, your target customers at large, didn't really care for it? Were there any differentiators like that?
I'm trying to think. I don't know that all of them really care so much about the whole eco-friendly aspect. I think they really love that they smell good, and when they buy them in the store, they smell them and they purchase them. And I don't know that it's necessarily, I think it's kind of an added plus for a lot of people. It's not, because we're in kind of not just the kind of health conscious market, but we're also in more like the fashion market, where there are a lot of candles that are popular and out there, and just because they have a beautiful design. So I think that's kind of one of the more important things to some people.
Yeah, and what does that do when it comes to the way that you represent your brand or in your actual marketing? When there is an aspect which it sounds very important to you, the eco-friendly aspect, but the customers, like you're saying, it's a secondary, it's a nice plus, but it might not get them to actually buy. They might buy more because of the design or the smell. Do you then try to squeeze in the eco-friendly aspect? Do you lead with it because that's what you care about? Like, how do you think about positioning or messaging your brand when there are differentiators that you care a lot about, but maybe your customers don't care as much about?
I think for me, it's more of a kind of secondary aspect that I always mention in product descriptions, but I mostly highlight the design aspect of the candles, the design and the fragrance. I think that, for me, I'm a designer, I'm an art director, and design is very, very important to me. And, creating a curated environment and having something that's not only kind of a sensory, olfactory experience, but also can be a beautiful statement piece, on your coffee table or on your shelf or in a room. I think that's a really great aspect of our products. It just happens that it's important to me that everything is made with, great ingredients as well.
Right, makes sense. So you started on Etsy, like you're saying, almost as like a joke to see if you could sell these online. How quickly did it take before you started realizing that this is no longer like a joke business? This could become an actual like real business.
Yeah, it was during the holiday season. It kind of started escalating after around November, December.
And you were in business for how long by this point?
Just a few months, like 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
So I got a few orders around October on Etsy, and it wasn't like, I wasn't going to quit my job, but November and December things got really crazy. My entire apartment was covered in candles. My husband, who was my boyfriend at the time, he was helping me wick just like countless jars. And our floors were covered, and it wasn't at the point. It was probably about I think 6 months after I opened the Etsy shop. I got this big order for it was like $4,000 worth of candles, and I was like, this is more than my monthly paycheck. I could totally just do this because I can make these candles in like 4 days. So it was at that point where I was like, you know what, I can quit my job, if this keeps going. And it didn't keep going right away. It was kind of just like a one-off, but eventually after a year, I was able to quit my full-time job and do this full-time.
Mm-hmm. Now, what were you looking for before you quit your job? Was it that kind of repeat enough monthly revenue that matched your income?
Just more consistency. I got one really big order, and then it was kind of, I realized that I was doing freelance design work at the same time as running the business. So I was kind of doing both. I realized that I couldn't do candle making full time until I really got the name out there. Until I really started pushing my brand, and I really wanted to I started out with different branding at the beginning, and I didn't love it so much, and I really wanted to create something that I really, really loved. And so that took a lot of time to really create the branding and the packaging and something, all the vintage inspired botanical stuff. And so it took me about 6 months beyond, the first time I quit my job to really get to a point packaging, branding wise, where I was really happy with what was selling.
Now, for people out there that are creating their branding for the first time or recreating it as you did, how do you I guess work through this process when you are, let's say, in the middle of rebranding, but your assets are your old assets and you're trying to move towards new ones? Like, what's that middle period like when you're going through this transition of your branding?
That was pretty hard because some people really loved my old designs, but you can't have. Branding needs to be very consistent. It needs to be a kind of bold statement, I think, just and very continuous across all aspects. So you can't have just like this. My old canvases were these colorful and they were totally different style, and then the new ones, which are more minimal, kind of more refined. So basically, I just dropped all my old stuff and I just put up my new stuff. And I started doing some serious sales after I finished my new branding. So I don't know. I don't think that my business was established enough to really, needed to have retained the old stuff. It was at a point where I wasn't really out there enough where I couldn't drop it. So I'm just going to drop all this old stuff and really push this new stuff.
Right, you could kind of do like a hard cutoff and transition over. Makes sense. Now, when you were first starting your Etsy store, do you remember how were you getting traffic? Where were they coming from at that time? Especially when you're only a couple months in, you're a new brand. People probably haven't heard of you before at that time. How were people finding your listing? What do you think helped?
This is partly where luck comes in, and partly, some research. I went to a couple Etsy workshops, and they did a lot of talking about keywords, and they kind of taught you how to optimize your keywords, make your stuff easy to find, really make sure your store is trustworthy. And one thing that I worked on a lot was the photography, the product photography. I redid it 5 times. I tried it in studio lighting, and then I tried it in natural lighting, and whatever was getting the most traffic, I would kind of work on that, and kind of optimize that. But where the luck comes in is, after I did all that stuff, Etsy ended up featuring me in a couple of emails during the holidays. And that was like pure luck, because I didn't reach out to them or anything about that. They just kind of found my product. And then that was probably the photography too. Once I had really good photography, they want to feature you in their emails because you make them look good. Mm-hmm. So they sent out an email blast to however many thousands of people, and some of my candles were on it, and I just got crazy orders from that. And so that was one thing. I also did reach out to a few. I reached out to Brooklyn Based and a couple other press outlets, just telling people about the candles I was doing, and I was also doing markets. I did Artisan Please and a couple other kind of independent markets just to meet people and tell them about my brand. So that's what I did initially. I have other things that I did after I did the rebrand that helped a lot.
Mm-hmm. And when you were reaching out to press, was it like all local press at the time? Like what kind of press were you going for?
No, just like local press. I just reached out to Brooklyn Based, and they did a feature on a collaboration I was doing with a friend of mine who makes ceramics. But I didn't get a ton at that point. I just it wasn't super aggressive. It was just a couple of different publications.
Mm-hmm. Now, the retailers that started finding your listing, was this after that holiday season? What I guess led them to discover you?
There was a few that found me during the holiday season. I think they were just looking for soy candles or Christmas candles. And usually during that time, where Christmas is our busiest time of the year, I think what happens is a lot of people are just Googling candles and they want candles quickly, and they're just like, I need candles now. And so I think they were searching, candles and Christmas candles in particular. And when I had a Christmas tree candle that was, crazy popular. I was just making tons and tons of those.
Now, how do you work with these retailers? Are they just buying from you wholesale? Like, is there a specific kind of arrangement you try to set up?
We just sell wholesale now. I did consignment at one point, and I don't really like that relationship. It's a lot to keep track of. So we have, our retailers just purchase wholesale from us. That's mostly through our Shopify store. I have a wholesale portal that I created on our web store. So basically, our wholesale partners log in and they can purchase products at wholesale prices. And sometimes I'll invoice them. They'll email me, and if it's a big order, I'll invoice them. But yeah, it's a pretty simple arrangement. They
Mm-hmm.
just reach out to me, give me their resale ID, send me a link to their website, and I'll kind of evaluate whether we're a good match as far as our products and their aesthetic. And then they'll place their first order and then see how it does in their store, and then they'll continue to place orders if it does well.
And are you using some kind of app for this wholesale portal?
I use a combination of apps. The one app that I use for our wholesale portal is called, give me 1 second. It's called Locksmith. So it allows you to password protect part of your site, so that only people with certain permissions can enter that part of your site. So all I do really is I go into Shopify, I'll enter a customer, or I'll go to an existing customer and tag them as a stockist, and people that are tagged stockists can log in.
And so once they log in, is it just like a list of products that they can order from you wholesale?
Yes.
Cool. So it just looks, I guess not exactly the same, but looks like a similar e-commerce store, the shopping experience.
I recently made it a lot more streamlined because we were adding more products to that section of the site. So basically I have, I have one line, and then I have a drop down using one of the app's product options by Bold, so they can pick their scent. And so I can do a combination of variations and then scent options.
Now, you eventually, of course, opened up your Shopify store after the Etsy store. What spurred that decision? Like, what made you decide that even though I was having success on Etsy, you got a
Mm-hmm.
lot of attention from Etsy, from your retailers, from people that are buying from you like crazy during holiday season. Why not stick and focus on that rather than open up a new store?
Well, I have both now. Most of my traffic comes from Shopify, and I think you have so much more control with your own e-commerce store. I actually started I tested out several different e-commerce, providers. Squarespace, which really didn't work out well, and which is the other one, BigCommerce or some other commerce, that didn't work out well either. Where really Shopify came into play was this is kind of where me trying to grow my business, or a huge kind of thing that I did to help grow the business was I did a Guilt City offer. So basically, Guilt City are these different subscribers. They have like millions of people that, are subscribed to their emails, and they email out a blast about deals, and then which drives people directly to your website, and they can enter this discount code. And what kind of led me to end up doing Shopify is it enabled me to import like hundreds of discount codes without having to add them in one by one. There was an app for that called bulk discounts, which is huge. So all I had to do was upload an Excel spreadsheet. So I ended up, starting my Shopify and doing it over the course of like an all-nighter, creating the initial store.
Yeah, and so this was you're doing this because you also need to do it for that Guild City offer. Is that correct?
Such a off the cuff thing, and then it ended up being the best thing for the business because I love kind of how I can just add different apps, and anything I want to do, there's an app for it on Shopify. It's amazing.
Now, the Guild City offer, how did you get this set up? Do you have to get approved for a deal? Can anyone sign up to offer a deal through Guild City?
No, it's kind of like they are curators, so they have to select you. So I don't remember if they reached out to me or if I reached out to them. It was one or the other, obviously. But they wanted to feature our, they kind of have a curated experience. So it's not just anyone. And I think they cater to a certain kind of urban dwellers, people looking for luxury type items, people looking for curated experiences, brands, stuff like that. So, I think we kind of fit into the profile of stuff they wanted to send to their following. Mm-hmm. So, I think that was important because we have that aesthetic. We have kind of a more high fashion aesthetic, which they were looking for.
And was it a quick process, like between the time they reached out for you the first time to the point where they blasted out your deal to their huge audience? How long did that take?
It took a while. I think it was a couple of months when we first started talking. So you have to send them lifestyle photography, and they edit it. They have to go through it and decide what they want to feature on your page, and then you have to kind of go through the contracts and the negotiations as far as they get a cut, and you can kind of negotiate how much of a cut they get, because it ends up not being a whole lot of because people come to your site and they basically enter a gift card code and they get it for free, and then what happens is Guilt pays you a cut of that afterwards. So, that ends up not being a whole lot, but then you end up getting 1,000 new subscribers, and people learn about your brand, and, you could possibly get repeat customers and stuff. So it's kind of a good way to start.
Yeah, that leads me to my next question. That's usually the sometimes negative, I guess the complaints with working with deal sites, not just Guild City, but I guess the Living Socials and Groupons of the world, that people were saying that, you get all these kind of a huge influx of customers, but they aren't the type to necessarily repeat buy. Did you experience that with as well?
Definitely. I think a lot of people, they only wanted the one-time deal, but they sign up for the mailing list. And if I sent out a blast that basically is the same deal later, 3 candles for $50, I ended up making all of that. And, I think that, they respond to your deal. So if they're on your email list and you have discounts or free shipping or a promotion, they're the type of people who would react to that as well.
So they might not be they look for the deals because that's how they found out about you, but you can always offer them deals and promotions after that initial deal as well to bring them back to the store.
If they're signed up for your mailing list, it's really the key thing. It's like them learning about your brand, telling other people about it, trying out your whatever you're selling, and also signing up for your mailing list, which is huge for e-commerce.
Did Guilt guess coach you or suggest the kind of offers or products that made the most sense for the business? Like, what was that curation process like?
It's more of a you kind of talk about back and forth. They select what they ideally would want for your product offering, and you can say, I can't work with those margins on this product. Can we offer this higher margin product instead? Or you could agree with them. So it's kind of a back and forth. But they do the initial selection, and you can kind of, gear them towards other stuff that you would rather sell.
Right, makes sense. Okay, so now at this point, the store, Etsy store is going, your personal store is going, or your own store is going, wholesale is going. Which one, I guess, is most important to your business? Which one do you think is, if you had to focus on just one, which one would you spend the most time on?
Wholesale by far. Wholesale makes up probably about 85% of our business. And bulk orders during the holidays, actually, for like corporate gifting and stuff. I think, because candles tend to be a big impulse purchase and kind of happens a lot at point of sale. In stores, it's like last minute gift or, I need to get a candle today. I'm just going to go nearby. It tends to be because when people order online, they can't smell it. It tends to be more of a process. So it's more people that have smelled our stuff before and like love it, and so they're just ordering more. They're restocking. Our stores do really well with our candles. So it's a lot easier to sell candles in person.
And would you say that you probably wouldn't be able to go this route, or could you go this route of going into retailers without having Etsy or your Shopify store? Could you do it without those two?
I think you could, but you don't have as much validation. I think the Shopify store, or at least my store, really makes retailers take us seriously. But at this point, we're in a lot of stores. We're in over 300. We're around the world. So I think that people have seen our product. So if we didn't have a website, they would be like, okay, I've seen your product. I can take you seriously. But if you're just starting out, I don't think it's really something that, you want to make sure you have a website.
Now, what about when we were talking about Etsy and your own store then? If you could go back and do it all over again, would you just start off with your own store, or did you find value in starting with Etsy first?
I think Etsy was great to start with because of that community, and the fact that, people leave reviews and they can favorite your items and they can kind of follow you, and people see that. So people can kind of see, how people are engaging with your shop. And also the folks at Etsy are really great. I have a great relationship with them. Since we're both Brooklyn based, they come to the studio sometimes. I've taught them a class. They invite me to press events. It was really great. And they feature my stuff in lots of different edited guides and Etsy finds and stuff like that. And they have Etsy wholesale as well. So, buyers can find things and purchase things on Etsy via wholesale too. So I think Etsy was really great to start out with. But once people knew about our brand and were searching it, it's really nice to have something, where I can control the assets, I can control how the product pages look, I can control the metadata. And, people aren't going to be like, oh, I got this on Etsy. They're going to be like, I got this on brooklyncandlestudio.com, which is a branded thing.
Right. Now, how do you know when that moment has happened where it makes sense to, keep your Etsy store, but also opening up your own store? What would you recommend to other people that are on Etsy and are thinking about opening up their own store? What's that critical point where either traffic or sales, what are you looking at? What would you recommend they look at to determine, okay, now it's time to devote some of my, attention towards creating my own store?
I think people should do it, instantly, because especially if you are doing a lot of wholesale sales, because, if a buyer asks for information, and you want to be like, oh yeah, my store is www.soandso.com, because that's kind of a more pure brand, I think, in my opinion. And you can really represent your brand across all facets, from typography to all the imagery. And so I think always do a Shopify store in tandem with an Etsy store. I think also, I work with a bunch of different shops that kind of are like drop shipping shops, but not really. Like, they kind of link to your products. And like Spring, I don't know if you've heard of Spring. They're a shopping app. And they curate a bunch of fashion brands. And basically, if you can place an order in Spring, and it goes through to your Shopify store. So there are a lot of apps that can help you kind of spread the word about your brand as well.
So Spring, that's an app for shoppers to browse and buy things, and then it goes to your Shopify store if someone purchases it through Spring?
Yeah. So Spring integrates with, and Spring is not the only shop that does. There's like PopMap, there's Spring, there's House. There's a bunch of different shopping apps, for your iPhone or your iPad, where people can kind of scroll down and their credit card is connected to the app. And so people can just click on the item they want and purchase it. And what happens is, if it's integrated into your shop, it's not like with other drop shipping sites, you have to go through to their portal and then you have to do whatever processes they have. You just kind of fulfill the order as you would your own. So that it just makes things easier if you have a certain workflow in place. I don't like to work with any drop shipping sites, with my products, unless it's just integrates. And so they take 10%. So it's not like they take 50%. They take 10% of all their sales, but they can offer a lot of products.
Gotcha. Now, you mentioned this a few times already about the value of photography for your business. Now, are you like a photographer? Or did you do it all in-house? Like, how did you get started with taking, amazing product photos for your products?
I studied, I wouldn't call myself a photographer, but I've done a lot of it. I probably am a photographer to some degree, but I'm not like a lighting or anything. Anyway, I studied photo styling, photography, took a bunch of courses. I studied of graphic design and a bunch of different aspects of art direction. And I also worked as an art director in the corporate fashion world, and as a designer. So, I had a lot of experience with photography from design school, and from my job. And so, that was really huge. And I did a lot of research on that stuff. And I think also through a lot of trial and error, if you have an internet connection, you can kind of just put up product photos and see if people respond to them. It's also very important for social media, for all the different assets on the site, from your hero images to your product images. And this is kind of like, these things market themselves. If you have beautiful photography, if you're not a photographer, hire a photographer. Super important, and a stylist if possible, because this stuff gets pinned on Pinterest and it gets shared, and the links get sent around, and kind of covers the internet. And you need to make sure you're presenting things in a beautiful light. I think that's the most important part of an e-commerce store, really.
Now, once you have these amazing photos, where do you find most traction in sharing? You mentioned Pinterest before. Is that where you try to get all of your photos up?
Yes. I I haven't been amazing at it lately, but yeah, I try to upload everything to Pinterest, link it back to the site. I've done a lot of Pinterest advertising around the campaigns that I am most proud of. I released the line last year, and I did these really cool kind of botanical styled photos. They're like botanical still lifes, and I ended up pinning that and paid for. I promoted that pin, did a paid promotion, and it's gotten. I mean, we get so much Pinterest traffic now after the promotion because it's been pinned so much.
Do you remember how you had that Pinterest ad set up?
Not exactly. I just kind of went to promoted pins, and if you set up a Pinterest business account, you can kind of say the target audience, the different keywords you want people to look for, and stuff like that. So I don't remember exactly what I remember. It was very kind of like I do everything very quickly. So.
Yeah, definitely. Action is definitely important more than trying to be academic about it. Now, any tips for people that aren't, maybe they do have a nice camera but they've never done photography before. What tips do you have to recommend for people that aren't great photographers or just don't feel, I guess, creative to take the kind of photographs that you're talking about?
I think that you don't necessarily need a very complicated lighting setup. Like you just need to be by a window and get some natural light. I think that's very important. You can create really beautiful photos that way. And you can just get any white paper, create a white seamless backdrop and put your product in front of it. Make sure you have a really nice camera. Like don't just use your iPhone because it kind of distorts things in weird ways. I would say I have a Canon 6D, and I just bought it refurbished on Canon.com. And I think your lens is also very important. I have a 50 millimeter a prime lens, and that allows me to kind of create either like this really ethereal effect in my photos. I think that's an important product photography lens. There's also 35 millimeter, which is a good lens. But, do some basic research, Google product photography. I think you can find some good information on it and just do a lot of trial and error and talk to someone who's kind of, after you take your photos, show it to someone that has kind of a discerning eye and be like, yeah, hi, what do you think about these? Are these, would you buy this? Because, not everyone has the eye for this stuff. Not everyone can hire someone. So, try to get help where you can.
Now, when you sit down to, I guess, compose your product photos, your lifestyle shots, what kind of conscious decisions do you make to improve, I guess, the visuals of the product photo?
I do a kind of a lot of styling, so I like to incorporate a lot of botanicals. And I think I found through Instagram that my audience really responds to that. So flowers and plants and stuff like that. People really like.
How'd you know that? How'd you know that your audience would respond well to that?
Well, I track my Instagram engagement. So whenever I post stuff with flowers or plants, and then people go crazy. So we tend to get a lot more likes and engagement when I post something like that. So I try to do that across all channels for lifestyle photography. But incorporating gold, I like to do a lot of aerial shots or laydowns, as people call them. So it's a lot of experimentation. I take a lot of shots and I kind of art direct them. I narrow them down.
Mm-hmm. Can you give us an idea of how successful the business is today?
We are in. It's at the point where I can't even update my stock list because we just keep adding people. So it's like we're probably in over 400 stores at this point around the world. We're in over 20 countries, from France, Italy, Germany, the UK. We're in China. We're in Hong Kong, Singapore, all over the US. And so that's very awesome. We also sell to major retailers. We have a good partnership with West Elm. We're in 12 different West Elm stores, West Elm Market stores, Whole Foods. We have sold with Urban Outfitters before, and a bunch of really amazing independent retailers too. So
when you go after these bigger players like Whole Foods and Urban Outfitters, were they reaching out to you, or did you have to go through?
They all reached out to me. All the West Elm buyers reached out. The Urban Outfitters reached out, and Whole Foods reached out.
That's awesome. Now, when you're working with them, is it any different than working with independent retailers, or is the process more involved?
Definitely a lot more involved.
Yeah.
So we work with them and Taylor and Inc. And Diesel. So really big companies. They just have a lot of documentation that you have to follow. I think it's a legal thing, but all of them have literally like 200 pages of or more pages of logistics that you have to follow, and certain ways of labeling your products. You have to have UPC codes for Whole Foods. That was a whole process. And yeah, there's a lot of different requirements. They send you official POs, so you need to invoice them a certain way. So it's definitely a lot more involved, and I don't know that the average person would be able to work with these people, with these big. It's so complicated. There's so many things that can go wrong, but it's definitely, once you've done the more complicated ones like Urban, other ones become a little bit easier, I think, because they have a lot of parallels. So
mm-hmm. Now, you're still not making these out of your home, are you? These candles?
No. We almost got evicted for me doing that.
Your entire building must have smelled like candles.
Yeah, that was not a good experience. No, I have 2 studios now up in Sunset Park. We had a 500 square foot studio that we worked out of for about a year and a half, and then it was time to, the people next door moved out, so we took over that studio too. So I'm still looking to expand into bigger spaces. We're kind of filling out of those spaces too.
So how big is the team now? How many people do you have working in the studios?
I have 4 full-timers right now. So they do all the production. I still am managing like all the other hats. And then we have two people that come in as needed. So when we are really, really crazy, they come in and we'll help out. And sometimes I work with a temp agency and we'll add more help as needed. So, we have our four core team, doing all the work. And then when things get crazy, we have additional help. Plus me.
Yeah. When you do hire from a temp agency or hire someone part-time for the seasonality, how do you ramp them up? How do you get them into, ready to work mode as quickly as possible?
That was a big challenge this year, especially since, this was a really big year for us. We doubled all our sales from 2014 or 2015 and 2016. And we're on track to double those sales this year. But I didn't anticipate the craziness of the holiday season. I was also, when the holiday season started, I was 9 months pregnant. And I gave birth in the middle of our busiest time of year.
Oh my God.
So that was really, really stressful and insane. But, so I hired people, I used Craigslist, and posted ads on Craigslist for job offers. Job advertising. Did a lot of interviews, and I work in production. We do a lot of production. So I have people come in for trial days, paid trial days. Come in for 1 day and work with the team, and we kind of evaluate if they're fast enough, or if they're, because it's kind of like a small open space, so people kind of work together a lot. So this person has to be easy to get along with, since everyone's in such close quarters. So we'll do a trial day, which is important because you need to see how the person works, and then from there, kind of narrow it down. So, the temp agency, that was pretty tough. We went through some interesting people that came to work for us, and for 2 days, it just didn't work out. I wouldn't work with them again. They sent a couple of people that were great and that we kept throughout the whole holiday season, but we had to go through 6 different people that were totally wrong for the job. Like one person didn't even speak English. So I don't know that I would recommend that route, honestly. I think that if I was not super pregnant, I would have interviewed people off of Craigslist myself.
Yeah. So nowadays, now that you have a team of people helping you out, where do you focus most of your time on a day-to-day basis?
So I do everything else that's not production. I do customer service. I invoice our wholesale customers. I answer questions about, our brand, and I do all of the press questions and interviews and stuff like that. Also do all our creative assets, our email designs, our website stuff, photography, or social media. So I mostly focus on creative direction and customer service. Which are two very important areas.
Mm-hmm.
I have an accountant, so I am able to outsource that. But I actually do a lot of our accounting. I use QuickBooks, which makes things easy. Mm-hmm. And yeah, I just do everything else that's not production. It's a lot of work.
That's a lot. Awesome. So BrooklynCandleStudio.com is the website. Where do you want to see the business go next?
I love introducing new stuff. I kind of want to just keep expanding into new markets. Do a lot more cool collaborations. I'm working on a couple of really interesting ones right now. One with different unnamed big retailers, kind of doing some custom scents and stuff like that. So just, being able to grow my team, offer more opportunities to my current team, and come out with, great scents and great, products for people to enjoy.
Very cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Felix.
Here's a sneak peek of what's in store for the next Shopify Masters episode.
So we have to be careful with our content online marketing. We had a lot of banner ads turned down because of the content. So we really had to craft our marketing so that it was palatable.
Thanks for listening to Shopify Masters, the e-commerce marketing podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs. To start your store today, visit shopify.com/masters to claim your extended 30-day free trial.